50 communities across the country. And I could not say anything that touches on Missouri or Kansas without acknowledging my personal hero, Burt Berkeley, my personal hero and favorite centenarian, Burt Berkeley, whose championship of grade level reading was surpassed only by his insistence that none of us are doing enough unless and until we assure and ensure that all children have access to the best reading instruction that the science demands. Burt has been uncompromising, unflinching, and unwavering, and he has made a difference in his home states and made a difference in the nation as a whole. Now, let me begin by saying that we meet at a time when there are more children stranded on the wrong side of a cliff, or stranded on a cliff that's on the wrong side of an even larger gap. The pandemic has escalated and exacerbated the plight of so many children and have made it exponentially more difficult to achieve our goal of early school success for the children of economically challenged, fragile, and marginalized families. It has made that exponentially more difficult in many ways. And what it has made clear is that if we as a network of communities across the country are going to regain momentum and continue the progress we were making prior to the pandemic, we're going to have to do more, we're going to have to do different, and we're going to have to do better. And so the campaign, after pivoting to meet the moment presented by the pandemic in the spring, late winter and spring of 2020, we have spent some time looking carefully at what we've achieved, looking carefully about toward what we were learning and have been learning from communities, and fashioning what we've come to call the civic action and advocacy agenda for 2023 through 2026. And if any of you know the campaign, you know these slides carry the watermark draft. We remain open to making the amendments and the adjustments and the adaptations that will be required for progress and success. So let me take a look at the next slide, Lisa. As we look ahead, we have identified a set of priorities that would be on the list of must-haves for progress and success. And at the top of that list is digital connectivity. You know, we all knew that the digital divide was a problem. But when the pandemic hit and schools made the pivot to online learning, we were able to, we discovered that the digital divide was not a theoretical problem. It was a very real problem. And we now confront the reality that digital connectivity is analogous to everyday attendance. That the lack of digital connectivity is analogous to chronic absence. Children and families not connected to the internet will miss much of what traditional and untraditional education has to offer going forward. We must all become warriors for digital connectivity and view as unacceptable that any home, any child lacks access to the internet. We've got to continue working with schools and school districts and key decision makers to make smart decisions. And when you say smart decisions, what do you mean? A smart decision is a decision which invests with a view toward the future, not one that spends money now to meet a deadline. We've got to be able to invest in family engagement, to invest in technology, and we've got to be able to invest in everyday attendance. You will see us calling for more attention to kindergarten and to building that sturdy bridge between the early years and the early grades. And you will see that our messaging around more seamless systems of care and support for children, that messaging has evolved into claiming that what children and their families need is a system of 24/7, 365, multi-generational surround care, support, and services. Without systems that provide that, the children growing up in economically challenged, fragile, and marginalized families will not succeed. And as we think about what we do differently, we've got to mobilize communities. And Lisa, the next slide would probably be helpful at this point. We've got to mobilize communities to take up the challenge of out of school learning. There's got to be a community-wide support for out of school learning, because schools cannot do this alone. Schools are multitasking, multifunction, social service agencies. And if we leave teaching and learning to the schools, what we know is for young kids, schools come with too little, too late. And for the children as they get older, they just have too little. So what that means is all of us, and I'm hoping that the campaign will be able to play a role, got to get involved in building an ecosystem that supports out of school learning. One, we've got to equip and support parents to create learning-rich environments at home, beginning with home libraries and more. We've got to figure out how to create learning-rich environments in the places where parents take their children. And I know that literacy on laundromats and barbershops and grocery stores, this is becoming a movement all across the country. And we have got to activate communities to ensure that the children of economically challenged families have access to the libraries and the museums and the zoos and all of those institutions which provide supplementary education, provide enriching experiences, which allow middle class and middle income parents to build and supplement on what schools do. This building of an ecosystem is an essential next step in the work of the campaign. And my hope is that we all will take that on. And as we take that on, you will hear us centering parents, saying we've got to equip them to be essential partners in anything that goes on with their children. You'll see us insisting on walking with communities, working and walking with communities and learning on the ground, because those who are closest to the challenge are probably closest to the solution. And you will see us saying again and again that none of us can do this alone. We're going to have to do it together. We're going to have to build partnerships and practice collaboration. This will be the work of the campaign. And Lisa and Robin, I hope that you are both going to stay the course and you'll both continue to contribute to what we can learn from your work, from your communities, that you will continue to help us navigate these issues, and you will help us convert and transform what we learned from you into guidance that will help others all across the country. So again, thanks so much for the opportunity of joining you this morning for this important effort of yours. And please know that if I leave early, which I will, it's because this is grade level reading week 2023, and we have the good fortune of 18 states participating in various events. And I am trying to make as many of them as I can, but I'll stay for a little while longer, but you will see me try to leave discreetly at some point. Thank you both.
Thank you, Ralph. We know this. We know how to teach children to read and to read proficiently, but we also know now more than ever we need to engage our families and empower them and provide trusting resources. Before I introduce our next amazing speaker, on my side of the state in St. Louis, I want to tell everyone I apologize. Our chat feature is not, we can see your chats, but you can't see our chats. So let's just use our question and answer area to put any of your questions or your answers, or if you'd like to introduce who you are, we would love to see that. So on my side of the state, I just said here in St. Louis, I would like to introduce Miss Lauren Campbell. She's the Community Programming Coordinator for Ready Readers. Ready Readers is a St. Louis nonprofit organization with a mission to expand literacy for young children in low-income communities through high-quality books, strong relationships, and literacy-related experiences. I am extraordinarily honored that Lauren now leads Ready Readers' new St. Louis Neighborhood Reading Captains Initiative, and proud that you are on our webinar today. Welcome, Ms. Lauren Campbell.
Thank you, Lisa. So I just want to first thank Lisa and Kristen for inviting me and Ready Readers to come and speak at this webinar. Good morning to everybody, and thank you all for joining. Really excited to be here and to speak with you all. So again, I'm Lauren Campbell from Ready Readers. I'm going to share a little bit with you all about our newest program, Neighborhood Reading Captains. Next slide, Lisa. So I wanted to first just share what our mission is with Neighborhood Reading Captains. We, with Neighborhood Reading Captains, will celebrate the joy and power of literacy with their neighbors by sharing experiences and resources with families. So you might be wondering what Neighborhood Reading Captains is, and essentially it is neighbors supporting neighbors with access to literacy. One of the things I just wanted to highlight, some things that Ralph mentioned, was that, we want to mobilize communities. We want to center parents. We want to work with and alongside parents and communities. And we want to empower and provide trusting resources. And so one of the things that we've kind of realized is that, a lot of times these initiatives will start in areas that are marginalized and under-resourced. And there's just a lack of trust, there's a lack of relationship building, and there's just a lack, again, of centering those families. And so what we really want to do with Neighborhood Reading Captains is we don't want to do that. We want to support the work that's already being done. We want to empower the residents that are there to support their communities and bring these literacy experiences and resources to the families that are there. And so if you just think of it as neighbors helping neighbors and empowering neighbors, that essentially is what neighborhood reading captains are doing. Thank you. So I also wanted to share just a little bit about how we've structured our programming. We start with just selecting what neighborhood to go with. We are really intentional and thoughtful about where we are with neighborhood reading captains. Obviously, the goal is to go all across St. Louis. But when we are selecting neighborhoods, it's very easy to just look at the challenges that some of these neighborhoods face. And those are important to think about as well. But we also look at the opportunities that are there as well. What standing institutions are already there that have relationships built with the community? What are people already doing? So we try to look at both challenges and opportunities that exist in a neighborhood when we select where to bring neighborhood reading captains to. Then we begin with community outreach. We like to partner with a organization or institution that is in the neighborhood that can tell us, who is it that we need to talk to before we move forward with anything. We don't want to duplicate programming. We don't want to step on anyone's toes. So again, we try to be very intentional about and making sure we're working with existing partnerships and organizations that are already there in the neighborhood. Thanks, Lisa. Then we go into recruiting and hiring. We do that through a number of ways. I go and post flyers. We do social media posts, email blasts, and begin our hiring process. And then we just continue through ongoing engagement. I meet with the captains regularly to, offer other opportunities, support, give out books, and just to continue that relationship with our captains that are already hired. Okay, next slide, Lisa. Thank you. And so this is our slogan. I think it's super cute: book by book, block by block. That's exactly what we're doing. We are just trying to increase literacy, access to books and resources, and we are literally doing this block by block. And some of the things that we are measuring are our outcomes. So these are just some of our short-term outcomes. These are some of the things that we are going to be measuring. And we know, myself, the captains, we know we're making an impact. We feel it, we see it in any of our interactions with the families that we work with. But these are some of the tangible ways that we're going to be looking to prove our effectiveness. So we know that we hope that our neighborhoods will feel positive attitudes about their leaders. We want to increase families' connectedness to the literacy resources that they already have in their communities. We want families to feel connected to the resources that they need. We're hoping to improve the pre-reading behavior in young children. And then in general, increase literacy routines in homes and ensuring that they have all the books that they need to be able to increase their literacy routines. Next slide, Lisa. And so this slide, I just wanted to kind of highlight some of the work that we've been doing. We launched in January of this year. The West End St. Louis is our pilot neighborhood that we've been working with for the past 7 months now. And it has just really been a joy. I'll just share. So the picture that's there on the slide, Ready Readers has these storybook walks that we have put up all over the city. But again, we thought it was important to bring that storybook walk to the West End. So this was me with some of the captains installing our storybook walk at the Bayer YMCA. They've been a great community partner to us. So it's just a really fun day for families to be able to see that is really great. And so we have 5 captains that are working in the West End now. They're doing things like book distributions, supporting existing neighborhood programming that's already there, providing story times. So not only are they connecting families with literacy resources, but there's all kinds of resources out there. And so they're also helping to connect families with other resources such as urban gardens and just other resources that they may need. We are working to install little free libraries around the West End area as well. And we have distributed so far over 700 books to the West End community, which is just one thing I'm really proud of. It seems simple to just give out a book, but one of the captains shared the other day that she was working with a family and gave the girls a bunch of brand new books, and she was just commenting on the joy on their faces to just receive those brand new books. Something seemingly as simple as a book, but it can provide that kind of joy. It's just really special. And so we are also now recruiting in the Dutchtown neighborhood, which is another area here in St. Louis, in South City. And we hope to add a third neighborhood in the fall. Next slide, Lisa. Once again, just a few shots of us in action. Again, installing those storybook walks. We have partnered with an organization called the Reading Writers Book and Bike Riding Club. And it's a really cool thing where they start their day with a very, very, very long bike ride. And then they come back to Cabanne Library, which is the library in the West End community, and have a literacy component, kind of have like a book talk. And one of our reading captains helps to lead that. We participated in a really big Juneteenth event last month, where again, we got to really connect with some families, do some story times, pass out some books. And then again, just highlighting the fact that it's about building relationships as well. And so our captains are working to work directly with families in their neighborhood to build up relationships, provide literacy and other resources to those families. Next slide. And so if you would like any more information about Ready Readers or neighborhood reading captains, there's my contact information. Please feel free to reach out to me. If you are here in St. Louis and have any interest in partnering or helping support us, definitely reach out. There's my email. And I look forward to working with any and all community partners and folks that are out there interested in spreading literacy. Thank you.
Thank you, Lauren. That was wonderful. I'm so excited for St. Louis. I mean, this is a huge turning point for us. And a lot of this work was based on other grade level reading communities throughout the country. Specifically in Philadelphia, they started a reading captains program. And so it's nice to be part of this national network to bring best practices. And Kansas City is always, I just have to tell you, Kansas City is always a few steps ahead of us here in St. Louis. So I am quite honored to introduce our next speaker. Miss Tina Gill, who's on the other side of the state in Kansas City. She's the Director of Collective Impact Initiatives for Turn the Page KC. Oh, and really quickly, I apologize. The chat may be working now, so please utilize it. But if not, use question and answer. Miss Katina, but we're going to call her Tina Gill, has spent over 15 years working with students of all ages and backgrounds within the public school system and via nonprofit organizations. She entered the field of education as a Spanish teacher, but has also served in the roles of assistant principal and education specialist. With Turn the Page KC, Tina leads their new Read 360 Literacy Council, which I'm excited to learn a lot about. Welcome, Ms. Tina Gill.
All right, good morning, everyone. Thank you, Lisa and Kristen, for having me. Thank you, everyone, for joining this morning. And as Lisa said, my name is Tina Gill, and I am leading our newest collective impact initiative called Read 360. So let's begin. You can go ahead and get to that slide, Lisa. All right, so Read 360, back up. Just for our logo. Read 360 is our newest collective impact initiative with Turn the Page KC. The program focuses on centering the voices of parents and families, one neighborhood at a time, to connect them to the resources and services across the city that increase literacy for all children from birth through the teenage years. Next. We partner with parent leadership agencies to build and lead our literacy councils. Any adult in the neighborhoods that would like to assist in building literacy skills is welcome to join the group. This includes everyone from the local business owners to the parents. Each literacy council will include up to 20 neighborhood representatives. There is a commitment of approximately 3 hours a month which includes a 90-minute meeting where participants take part in envisioning the supports and opportunities the children in their community need to assist them with reading, writing, language, speaking, and listening. The other time will be used to distribute the information to the community members by means of sharing on social media, canvassing the neighborhood, and other methods determined to be effective by council members. All members receive new books for their children at each meeting. Dinner is provided. They receive a gift card for a local store, and transportation is provided for those who need it. Next slide. Read 360 has built and continues to build relationships with organizations across the city. These partners support the initiative by providing guest speakers to share their specific program information to the council and by providing direct referrals of possible members. We also take advantage of participating in local community events to increase awareness in the communities. Christian will drop our registration links inside the chat for those of you who are interested in seeing more. We have a little video, and I ask that you share it out, because if you live in the area or work or around the neighborhoods, we welcome you to join the Literacy Council. Next slide. Our arc of engagement is a living document. It is a blueprint to assist in guiding the meeting themes for our literacy councils. We understand that each community is unique and changes may be made when necessary. So these are some of the major concepts and themes. The arc of engagement is actually, it's a 3-year arc. So we have different themes for 3 years. Next. These are a couple of photos where we're out just building up the community awareness. It's one of our, so Literacy Council member and a volunteer. Next photo. That's some more building awareness. That is my youngest volunteer, and she has been very instrumental in getting out into the community as well. Next. Turn to page, KC. Maddie Rhodes and the Housing Authority of Kansas City work together to identify the best place to begin this work. Through these discussions, a decision was made to start the initiative in a neighborhood that surrounds a housing authority property. This idea birthed the first literacy council known as Community One. Community One includes the neighborhoods of Pendleton Heights, Independence Plaza, Parkview, and Forgotten Homes. These neighborhoods include the Housing Authority properties, Riverview, and Theron B. Watkins Apartments. Read 360 partners with Latinx Education Collaborative to convene this community. This is a photo of our Literacy Council in Community One. It's an amazing group, always engaged. Okay, so Community Two. Now, oh, you can go back to that one. Yeah. Community Two is a faith-based community with an organic start. So in the spring of 2023, we were actually approached by one of our Literacy Council members, and she asked if we could form a council that included churches. This idea has blossomed to include the neighborhoods of Key Coalition, Ivanhoe, Oak Park, Seven Oaks, and Santa Fe. Community Two will have their first meeting in August of 2023, and they will be convened by members of the Metropolitan Missionary Baptist Church, located at 2310 Linwood Boulevard. Next. So the mission of Turn the Page KC is to mobilize our entire community to ensure children gain the literacy skills they need to create a lifetime of opportunity, regardless of what school they attend and what zip code they are from. With this being said, our family field trips were introduced to support equitable access to the city. These experiences support familial relationships that positively influence the academic and social emotional development of children, which can enhance and improve their educational experiences and outcomes. While these trips provide access to opportunities some families wouldn't have, they also serve as a recruitment strategy for the Literacy Council. Next. So as of today, the Literacy Council members, along with individuals from the community, have participated in these events here. We went to go see Listen Wilhelmina at the Lyric Opera. They've taken a couple trips out to the Kauffman Stadium to watch a Royals game. Next slide. These are some photos of our families at the events. Next. Next. Okay, next. All right, so on the horizon, we have a trip to the Coterie Theater where the families will watch Dr. Dolittle. We're going to Science City to attend Kid Fest and the Kansas City Zoo to enjoy visiting with the animals and learning about the animals out there and just having some good family fun. Next. So we have learned a lot through this pilot, and the biggest thing is recruitment. Recruitment has been a challenge, but we are pondering additional avenues to get residents and local business owners to the table. Turn the Page KC has partnership with the Urban Education Research Center at UMKC, and we are currently thinking about our outputs and outcomes to determine how we measure success. Next. Have my contact information down there on the screen. Also, our website. I invite you to go check out our website and look at our current initiatives. You can send me an email with any questions. I can send you out our registration forms if you weren't able to get that from the chat. And if there are any questions.
Questions can go in the Q&A as a webinar, or yay, our chat feature is working. Yay, thank you. Tina, it's amazing. It's absolutely amazing that we're reaching families in Kansas City. We're reaching families in St. Louis. We're creating those trusting resources because it can only happen when our families get involved in their children's education. And families know this, and we know that families, they're the first love of their children. They are the first love. But empowering families who feel unempowered is going to be key to the social justice of illiteracy in our community. I am really honored next to introduce Mr. Joe Gallant. He is the outreach coordinator for Kids Win Missouri. And Kids Win Missouri, if you guys aren't familiar with, is Missouri's statewide children's advocacy organization. And as advocates, they have not forgotten about the families. And that's why Joe is so critical today to talk about Missouri families. Kids Win Missouri, it is a coalition of organizations and individuals dedicated to improving the well-being of Missouri's children. Joe and Kids Win Missouri has been working tirelessly to not only advocate on behalf of Missouri children and families, but to empower families and early educators to directly engage in the Missouri legislative process. Welcome, Joe Gallant.
Good morning, everybody. Hopefully you can hear me okay. Lisa, can you give me a thumbs up? Awesome.
Yep. Looking great.
Awesome. There we go. So I'm actually currently racing across our great state from Kansas City to St. Louis. So I'm going to stay off of camera. Otherwise, you guys would just see me cross-eyed staring at my phone. So I want to talk a little bit about legislative advocacy and how parents have engaged in doing some legislative advocacy over the past year with Kids Win Missouri, and then also how we plan on kind of maintaining that momentum going forward. So you can go ahead and go to the next slide, Lisa. So I'm going to talk a little bit about early care and education. And while this isn't specifically about grade level reading, of course, all of our making sure that we have quality early care and education programs in our state that all of our children can access is absolutely essential to making sure that our kids are as prepared to go into school, making sure that once they are in school, they are as supported as they possibly can be to maintain a healthy education throughout K through 12, obviously in the years leading up to K through 12 with some of our early care and education principles that I'm going to talk about here in a little bit, but really just making sure that we can provide as much support to our kids and families in the state as we can. And starting that really at those early stages of life and those early stages of family development is something that we really wanted to focus on this past year. So we can go to the next slide. So talking a little bit about why we're so focused on early care and education. We know from outcomes and just from engaging with experts in the field across multiple different disciplines, we know that a child's best chance in life really starts in those first few years of life. So what we wanted to do is look at how the state approaches things from a prenatal perspective all the way through a child's entire development, through them entering into the workforce as an adult, them going through that K-12 education, and of course that includes preschool and early childhood. And as you can see from this chart, making sure that we're investing in those kiddos early on and really putting our focus in our energy, putting our focus and our energy in those early years of a child's life and those early years of family development can really pay off in the later years in life. So we can go to the next slide. So these are just some of our pillars of advocacy here. So what exactly advocacy means, it really only works effectively when it includes all of these different components here. So linking research findings to policy solutions is our ultimate goal. So how are we using the research that we're doing in a specific area to really come up with solutions that can be put forward at the state legislative level? That's really where we want to see the pen moving. That's how we see the state investing real dollars in early care and education. So making sure that we're doing that in a research-based way and making sure that we're aligning our policymakers and our decision makers with real data so that they can make informed decisions. We also want to connect and align different stakeholders and form partnerships and build coalitions. This really only works when we have a unified voice across all different disciplines in the state. That would include cultivating champions like our business leaders, like our legislators in different parts of the state as well, like our leaders in different school districts. So this is where we want to cultivate champions of influential people, and that absolutely includes parents and providers and teachers as well. That lived experience and that expertise as a professional is really invaluable when we're trying to drive decisions in this work. So making sure that we are aligning all of those people and making sure that we're elevating their voices in a way that really cultivates that champion behavior is important. Developing relationships with those decision makers and making sure that folks have good, healthy, strong relationships with their legislators and know that they can advocate for these issues in a really effective way with them. And then building the political will to drive action. So this is really that capacity building and kind of that grassroots effort that we're trying to put forward at the community level, is building that political will, because we know that if we build that will amongst constituents and amongst those who are putting these decision makers in the place to make these decisions, it'll really help drive these policies. So we can go to the next slide. So these are the core principles of our early care and education initiative. Put children and families first, centering equity and really using that equity lens with everything that we're doing, because we really want this work to address some of the gaps that exist, especially in early care and education. Of course, we're looking at child abuse and neglect numbers. We're looking at numbers of maternal and infant health. And of course, we're looking at school readiness and what that looks like across different demographics and how we can make sure that any of the work that we're doing is helping to close those gaps. Building and sustaining advocacy capacity at all levels. So again, this is making sure that we are cultivating champions in multiple different places across multiple different disciplines in this work. Those who are most impacted have a meaningful role in shaping solution and campaign. This is going to be what I'm talking about a little bit deeper here in just a little bit, really making sure that we're not only giving parents, specifically, I'm going to talk about parents and families, but making sure that we're not only giving them a space at the table, but really allowing them to drive the conversation at the table, using their lived experience, using that expertise of, hey, I'm actively navigating this system right now. Here's what would work for me. And again, as we're talking more about grade level reading and making sure that those, again, thinking about things like school readiness, making sure that we are elevating the parent voice so that they know that they have as much support as they could possibly have at all levels when advocating for their kiddos to have the best chance to maintain that grade level reading as well. And then through all of that work, we want to transform early education policies and systems. We want to make that early care and education system here in Missouri as beneficial to all families as it possibly can be, so that we can make sure we're supporting our kids through their entire education. And that's not just in the early years, but through grade K through 12 as well. So how we do that is a few different components, as you can see at the top, that top graphic there. Thanks, Lisa. Just engaging in a couple of different ways with policymakers is a really kind of our approach with this initiative. So we had like a PR campaign. We also had some government affairs work that we ended up doing. We some community engagement, capacity building, but really I think a big, like kind of the meat the meat and bones of our initiative, so to speak, was really elevating the voices of families and providers in this work. So that's what I'm going to talk about a little bit now. So we can go to the next slide. So I want to talk a little bit about our parent and caretaker engagement, and we could just get right into it, Lisa, because I know we're running on time. But our goals of this parent and caretaker engagement was to engage a broad network of parents and caretakers and families throughout the state and develop and advance policy priorities. We wanted to cultivate families' leadership in ECE policy and advocacy issues, activate parents and caretakers to advocate for policies that impact children and families, and provide a space for convening parents and caretakers at the regional level should regional issues arise that parent advocates can address. So we wanted to take this approach across the state, but also kind of making sure that we recognize that each community looks a little bit different. Their needs are a little bit different. So really breaking the state up into 7 regions. You can go to the next slide, Lisa. Breaking the state up into 7 regions and using our partners in those regions, many of whom are on this call today. So we couldn't have done this work without them. But using our partners in those regions to help us recruit really a diverse population of parents and caretakers from that region that would be a good representation of the parent and caretaker community in that region. And we basically implemented a 12-month curriculum training to those parents and caretakers from that region to help build their capacity and advocacy and help build their understanding of what their role in legislative advocacy could be moving forward. So what that looked like, it looked like a lot of different things for these parents, but the main thing that it looked like was receiving that curriculum training over the course of those 12 months. So basically from June of last year until June of this year, those parents, there were 19 parents that did this program. Again, this was our inaugural cohort of the program. So there were 19 parents from across the state. We had at least 2 from each region that were able to participate. And again, that 12-month curriculum training was kind of the meat and bones of the program, but they also got the opportunity to go to Jefferson City and engage with their legislators in person, actually tell their stories, their own personal stories about struggles that they've dealt with in finding childcare, struggles that they've dealt with finding quality home visiting services or accessing quality home visiting services, difficult issues that they've faced with some of their older kiddos when they're thinking back to some of that school readiness and how, maybe some more support in the early years of that child's life could have really supported them in their education. So it wasn't just receiving these trainings. They actually got to go out and do some real hands-on advocacy with their legislators, with the governor's office, with the Office of Childhood, with a couple of different state administrators. So it was really incredibly beneficial for those parents to not only get this training, but also be able to actively use their voice and put it into practice. So we can go to the next slide. So throughout the course of this, we wanted to make sure that we were centering parents and families as much as we could. So we asked our fellows, what do you want to achieve and what supports do you need to achieve your goals? And we used that to really kind of influence the work that we're going to be doing moving forward, which is going to be our community building work. So really using our fellows that went through this program and our fellows that are going to be going through the program this next year, and kind of building an alumni network of different parents and caretakers that can engage in this work all across the state is going to be something to really build the capacity of all communities across the state for advocating for these issues. So we can go to the next slide. So the key takeaway from that program was to take a collaborative, inclusive, educational approach to bringing people together to act collectively to support early childhood initiatives in communities. So again, this just goes back to everything that Ralph said earlier as well. Just it clearly takes a village, as we all know. So making sure that we are using every resource that we can to build that collaboration in communities and really raise these issues. So we can go to the next slide. So again, just putting forward our investment blueprint that we've built out of this work. Really, it's going to be something that challenges communities to develop solutions to address their early care and education gaps that I talked about a little bit earlier. Communities playing a big role in supporting those solutions and building the capacity of communities to undertake these activities. So making sure that we're not just talking about those solutions, but we're actively supporting those communities and implementing those solutions. Go ahead, Lisa. Kind of going back to that same theme, this is really a puzzle that we're trying to put all the pieces together here of leadership, utilizing data to inform our decisions, coming up with a detailed plan of action, and then using technical assistance of groups like Kids Win, but also our community partners in the area that are also doing great work in different areas of the state as well. We can go to the next slide. So yeah, just really quickly want to run through some of our early care and education legislative wins so you can see how this work actually gets the pen moving. We can just go through these kind of quickly here, Lisa. We did get child care subsidy increased by 78.5 million in the state, which was a huge win. It brought us from the 21st to 25th percentile to the 58th percentile. That was, again, very, very big win for Missouri and for our kids and families. Next slide. Pre-K expansion for LEAs and childcare saw $56 million in grants for LEAs, and that's public and charter schools, as well as $26 million in grants for childcare facilities. So again, this is really helping to support that school readiness and making sure that kids are coming into school ready to learn, and that way, maintaining that grade level reading will really be a lot easier for them when they're given that support early on. We can go to the next one. This is just an example of a piece of legislation that didn't make it to the finish line, but something that, some of them don't always make it to the finish line, but something that we want to continue our momentum for in 2024 is the child care tax credit legislation. Had a lot of great support, and we built a lot of great champions, but we'll see where it goes next year. We can go to the next slide. We got increases to funding for home visiting, $2 million for evidence-based home visiting, and $1 million for home visiting collective impact sites. Again, this kind of goes back to just making sure that we are investing in programs that will really help with making sure that our kids are as prepared for school as they can be. We can go to the next slide. And then postpartum coverage. This one was a biggie, of course. We got postpartum coverage extended from 60 days to a full year, 12 months continuous, which was a huge win for us, huge win for the state in general. So yeah, these are all just examples of legislation that has now gone into effect or will be going into effect, that was really built from, I think, the momentum that these families and providers really put forward in this initiative. So I don't think that it's a coincidence that we had such a big year for early care and education while we were also convening this cohort of folks. And in the words of the governor, we're not done yet. So this is where, you know, convening groups like this and making sure that we have momentum for things like supporting our kids in their education is really so critical in making sure we're building the entire state's capacity to advocate for these things. So I think that might be it for my presentation, Lisa. I don't know. Yeah, if anybody has any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. I know, yep, there goes my email right there. So if you have any questions or any ways that you or any parents that you work with might want to get involved, we have a lot of really good events happening at the regional level that I want to keep people informed about. So please don't hesitate to reach out to me. And I appreciate the time. Thanks, Lisa.
Absolutely, Joe. I just want to say a few comments before we conclude. This is revolutionary, everyone. We are putting families first, and we are listening to families and trusting families to move our legislation and our programming, our reading captains and our everyday places and spaces to ensure kids can read proficiently. And these families that Joe talks about and the families that Lauren and Tina are working with, they're the ones that are leading this charge. Just 2 days ago, it was announced, as Joe, if you added up those numbers, that Missouri made one of the largest investments in early childhood education ever. It was $160 million. Families were the center of this change. And of course, our advocates like Kids Win Missouri, Ready Readers, and Turn the Page KC. I'm going to let Kristen, my colleague, conclude, but I want everybody to leave here believing that we can make our world better. We can make literacy start at the beginning of a child's life and ensure all children are reading proficiently when we center in on families and listen to them. Go ahead, Kristen.
Thank you. I want to give a huge thank you to our speakers today, Ralph, Lauren, Tina, and Joe, for bringing your experiences and your expertise to share with us, and to our participants for being here with us today and for your patience with a few technical challenges, but we got through it. Thank you. If you have any questions, please share them in the Q&A and we will share them with our panelists. And while you are writing, and we're gathering up those questions, I wanted to share a few quick announcements about some other learning opportunities this week during the Grade Level Reading Week 2023. Specifically for information about the Campaign for Grade Level Reading and their work, please go to their website at www.gradelevelreading.net, and Lisa will share that in the chat. This afternoon, Wednesday, July 19th at 2 p.m. Central Time. One of the events that the campaign is hosting is called AI Enhanced Efficacy, Assisting the Adults Helping Children. And that proves to be a very interesting approach to thinking through how we are supporting those doing the work of helping children become readers. Tomorrow, Thursday, July 20th at 2 p.m. Central Time. Also return at that time to learn about global perspectives on post-pandemic academic recovery. So helping us all think about where our local situation sits in the broader global perspective. And then hot off the presses, Lisa just added this in today, 0 to 3 just published a new brief last week titled Engaging Families in Policy Change. And she will be adding that link into the chat as well. Lisa, did you see any questions pop up that you wanted to?
Don't see any specific questions. A lot of shout outs. If you guys have any questions, we are at 11 o'clock. I know I'm going to go to this next slide because what's going to happen is you're going to, later this afternoon, you're going to think, wow, what was that about? What was this about? Please take down my name and contact information and Kristen's. I know that today's webinar was recorded. Everybody who signed up will get a copy of this by next week, along with the slide deck. And just please feel free to reach out to us and center those families and support our teachers. We can get this work done.
And I do see a question about where they can find the Global Perspectives session. And if you go to the website for the Campaign for Grade Level Reading, I think you will find the links to all of those sessions. Again, that's www.gradelevelreading.net.
And Lynette, I can send that to you too. All right. Kristen? Thank you all. Thank you, panelists, and thank you for bringing this to attention during Grade Level Reading Week. And hope everyone is having a wonderful summer and stay in contact with us. Together, we're stronger.